Yo, it's Go, and welcome to the video. If you were looking for the base damage of all of our spells at level 40, you're in the right place. Let's hop right on in. I'm going to go over our 6 damage spells, not including Hurricane. I've already done a video on that one. So for this one, I'll cover Sunfire, Starsurge, Wrath, Moonfire, Starfire, and Insect Swarm. In the little bubbles like this one right here for Starfire, this is the mana cost of the spells. So Sunfire will cost 179 mana, Starsurge 8 mana, Wrath 125, Moonfire 235, Starfire 180, and Insect Swarm 100 mana. Then this column over here is what you'll see when you mouse over the tooltip on your action bar. If you have Sunfire on your action bar, you put your mouse over top of it, you'll see that it's going to have a base range of 103 to 121. And then the dot will do 207 damage over 12 seconds. Starsurge will have a range of 303 to 372. Wrath's range is 142 to 161. Moonfire's range is slightly higher than Sunfire, which it wasn't in phase 1, but now it's going to outweigh it just a little bit base damage-wise. The Moonfire has a range of 105 to 125 with a dot total of 212. Starfire has a range of 212 to 253, and Insect Swarm with its 6 ticks of damage every 2 seconds will total 174 damage. I averaged those numbers up, so I took the total initial damage and the dot damage total for Sunfire and Moonfire, giving their GCD a value of 319 for Sunfire and Moonfire 327. Our highest GCD value is coming from Starsurge, where it will average non-crits 337.5 damage. Wrath in last place with 151.5 average. Starfire with 232.5, and for this one I didn't reduce it down from 3 seconds, so really it's half of that to get it down to a GCD value like all the other instant cast spells and Wrath. And then could take it a step further and divide it by 2.5 if it's a Nature's Grace Starfire, but I just left it as is just to show you its average cast damage. And then Insect Swarm doesn't change because it doesn't have a range. After I figured all that out, I included the talents into that base damage. So for Sunfire and Moonfire, I included Improved Moonfire 5 out of 5, and for Sunfire, Starsurge, Wrath, Moonfire, Starfire, I included 5 out of 5 Moonfury, which is an additional 10% damage. And Insect Swarm doesn't benefit from any of those talents, so it stays at 174. The next step, all the way up top, I can't reach that high. There's little red numbers 200, 225, and 250. That is the spell power. And then below in the columns is the average damage of each cast with that amount of spell power. So Starsurge in the lead, Wrath about half of the damage of Starsurge, Sunfire and Moonfire definitely pumping, and Starfire's kind of meh, because again you have to at least divide the 455 by half, which is 227, which would be its GCD value. So below Wrath, below everything, I think we'll still end up using it, but it's not looking good for Starfire. So I put 200 because I think that's what we might go into Gnomer with, is about 200 spell power. And then maybe a couple weeks into the phase we'll have about 250. And who knows, we could even get up to, say, 300 spell power in phase 2. The next step is to add in some critical strike rating. So I have a 7 as the first number for all of these. That is like a base crit chance with just your gear, maybe a couple of raid buffs. You might have anywhere between 6 and 8% crit, depending on the gear that you choose to wear. Then the 3 following that is our Moon Conform. There's 4%, which is a data mined crit from the Gnomeron world buff. That might change, who knows, but it's in here for now. And then there's a 2% from the tier set bonus. Whether you choose the leather set or the cloth set, you could have 2% crit for every spell, or you could have 2% crit for only Wrath and Starfire. Right now I'm leaning towards the cloth set that has 2 crit for every single spell, not limited to just Wrath and Starfire. And then Improved Moonfire gives the extra 10% crit chance for Moonfire and Sunfire. And then I've got our totals over here. So Starsurge with the least amount of crit with 16, Sunfire, Moonfire with about 26, and then Wrath and Starfire, I included Eclipse Crit into this as well, which is an additional 30% chance to crit for these 2 spells. Starsurge may benefit from that. It's to be determined. I left it out for now. Once phase 2 launches and we're able to get the rune, figure it all out, then maybe that 16 will change up to 46. And then Insect Swarm down there with a big old chicken egg. And the last step of this process that I did was to add in those critical strike chances with the spell power and the base damage to come up with some final totals here. We've got Starfire in the lead, but gotta remind you again, it's a 3-second cast or 2.5-second cast. So if we pretend it was a 3-second cast, didn't have Nature's Grace, then that value would be about 368. So our lowest. Next we've got Insect Swarm with 411, Wrath 451, Sunfire 615, Moonfire 623, and then Starsurge Blasting with 720. So another thing to note with these numbers is this doesn't include Dream State, which is going to add 20% nature damage to Wrath and Sunfire at the minimum. Insect Swarm, if you somehow have a spec with Insect Swarm, it'll boost that damage as well. So keep that in mind. This wasn't a rotational video. That will come eventually, but for now there's way too many questions of how these new runes in Phase 2 are going to interact with all of these damage numbers that you see in front of you. There's also other sources of damage to boost these numbers even higher, like the Dark Moon Fair, and even a brand new weapon that has a chance to apply a debuff to the mobs that it's attacking on to take additional spell damage. And who knows what other sources of bonus damage there'll be in Phase 2. So I'll keep you updated if I find anything out. The Druid Discord is being very active right now. There's loads of questions going on in there, but feel free to message me on Discord myself personally, and I'll answer any questions that you have. And if you were curious how I figured out the value for Sunfire and Starsurge, the formula was data mined for Sunfire, and it is the same formula for Starsurge. The only difference for Starsurge is the beginning number of the formula, which you can find if you go to Starsurge's spell page. 381 and 467 for the range, whereas for Sunfire it's 130 and 152. So this whole highlighted section here is the bottom number of the range, the base number, and then to figure out the maximum number, you would have to calculate this formula down here. And then Sunfire even has the formula for the dot damage. So instead of the 130 or the 152, it has 65 times 4. And then it has the same exact rest of the formula. And that's going to be it for now. Let me know what you think about the damage values. And do you think those are going to be high enough for us to compete on the damage meter at all? Or are we still going to be hanging out on the bottom?